Yo, what's going on, gamers? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today, I'm going to be going over some of the TLMC maps in the most recent Team Liquid map contest, which I think it's like number 19 or something like that. Crazy amount of these that we've been through. But I've been judging them once again, and I've taken a bit of a different approach. This time around, I didn't stream myself judging any of the maps. I didn't leak any of my own results, which I think are now available to all the map makers. And I pretty much just did all the map judging entirely on my own. So in this video, I'm just going to go over stuff that I saw, what I liked, what I didn't like, which maps stood out to me, and maybe which maps didn't stand out to me. I'll see you guys there. I'll just quickly, I guess, showcase real fast like my scoring. So honestly, for the most part, I was scoring like really good on some of the maps. I think I only gave a couple of twos, and okay, maybe more than a couple, but I feel like for the most part, I didn't actually give the worst ratings. I felt like in the previous TLMC, I did give some I guess worse ratings. But I do feel like the maps this time were much better. Despite being, I guess, the freestyle category, which like people did some crazy stuff, and I can't speak for the judges, but I definitely did not like penalize for anything crazy unless I knew off the bat that it was just going to be busted. I can give you a couple of examples of things that I saw. I think character, one of the map makers, had like some pretty interesting, um, like stuff obstructing pathways, and you kind of had to like snake around it. You had healing like pads, like literally a little like pad on the terrain where you could like heal your units. So stuff like that was really cool. Obviously, again, like I put some thoughts, like for example, the healing pad. I was like, okay, maybe this is, maybe this would be really good, or maybe this would be too good against like, or for harassment units like mutas. But obviously, I don't know that, and I thought it was a cool feature, so I didn't penalize maps for stuff like that. But just to, I guess, summarize as we'll go in order here. Rush. So this is pretty straightforward. As you can see, I didn't really give anything lower than a 3. For the most part. Oh, and actually, real quick before I continue, for those of you who are not familiar with the map contest, with scoring, you got 1 through 5. 1 being completely unplayable, should never be used in ladder. 2 also unplayable, but has like some perks to it. 3 is could be used, but has some issues. 4, same thing. 4 is better than that, maybe like 1 or 2 small issues. But for the most part, playable. And then 5 is like a really good map, should definitely be used in the ladder. And that's the scoring. So, for the rush category, I didn't really see anything super crazy. I can't remember anything off the top of my head. Um, Something that was really common was that a lot of the bases still are really far apart. Most of the time, it was an issue of like the third and the fourth. And I think this is something that's really hard to do because you basically have to like, you can't give 4 bases for free because that's just like busted or kind of annoying, especially like Terran or Protoss maybe. But then you also don't want it to be too hard because then, how am I going to take a fourth? My fourth base is in Narnia and I'm playing against the Zerg who has like insane mobility compared to my army, right? I basically never take a fourth. So there is a really tough balancing between that, which unfortunately I feel like this is such a key concept um, in the game because even if we were to decide, okay, yeah, the maps should be different to kind of push the meta. Unfortunately, with StarCraft, it feels pretty limited right now in that sense, where we know that, for example, Zerg has like the strongest mobility, and if you make it impossible for a Zerg to take or if you make the third too far away, Zerg has a hard time holding on to that base because it's so far away. But then if you put it too close, and then you put the fourth farther away, then the fourth can be abused by the Zerg, and then you kind of have like problems. I feel like I explained that so poorly. I'm gonna try again. Okay, and I'll still leave that in the video. Okay, so Zerg has mobility strength, right? So if the fourth is farther away, the fifth is farther away, Zerg can punish the other races because their bases are farther away and they don't really have the same way of connecting them like Zergs do because they have creep. Okay, but on the other hand, if you make a third base too hard to take, Zerg can't really gear up very well on 2 bases. So if I pressure a Zerg and make it really hard for them to take their third or harass their natural, if the distance is too wide between those 2 bases, they can actually get clapped because they really need that third base to keep up, right? Zerg is supposed to be like one base ahead, right? Economically to keep up. So if they're not able to have that, they're just dead like all the time. So you have to be able to balance that kind of stuff out. And like everybody knows, no matter what you do with the map, a 2-base Zerg is just shit. Like Zerg on 2-base is absolutely horrible, and you can't really do anything with that. So to summarize, that was just something that I noticed a lot on these and the maps in general, like in all the categories. And that was like something that unfortunately, like the map was good maybe, or had really cool features, or it was nice, but like I could not overlook the fact that if I were to play this map on ladder, I would 2-base all in a Zerg, and I would just murder them every time because there's just like no way that they could take that base without being punished. So sometimes it's a distance, sometimes it's like there's really good terrain features right next to the third that a Terran can abuse, like siege tank positionings or like some sort of leveraging or stuff like that. And then the same way it works also the other way, right? Like if a third base is maybe easier to take, but then it's like super open, then it's like really hard to hold on to, and that could be an issue as well. That was something that I noticed a lot. Was like sometimes it would be like a really wide open third, and then also a wide open fourth. So then you had like no real way of making it easy to make chokes to hold on to those bases. And with like this huge Ling Bane style that we have with a couple of Hydralisks, it's just like super tough. So, in the rush category and in general, that's just something that I noticed. And otherwise, I felt like the maps were pretty cool. Like again, I there was no feature in my head that I saw, and I was like, "That's just fucking dumb. That makes no sense." I think I saw a lot of actually not in this category. We'll continue, but I can't remember which category it was where I saw a lot of people making like a really fast natural in the main. So like you could take a main like it wasn't the same high ground. So you had your main, and then right next to it there was like a mini natural, and then you could go down a ramp, and then you could take a third. And I thought that was really cool too. I think I added some comments about how like that might be a little bit crazy with like Protoss taking a quick second base into a quick third base and kind of going straight into Sky Toss. That's not really like a balance issue, I think. That's just more of like I guess like game design. Like people are not gonna like that, and it's also a bit abusive in my opinion. That's a bit abusive. So that's I put that. But again, like I'm a Terran judge, so I can't speak as much for the other races. But I also couldn't overlook that kind of stuff. Now as you can see here under the standard category, we have a lot of maps that have non-standard bases, which is what I was talking about, which I thought was super cool and I really like. So we'll actually look at this one. So this one I gave a 5, and it's javelin. So you can kind of see, and this is actually also something that I just remembered as well. There's a lot of like forward bases like this, which I thought was really cool because I feel like we don't really have that as much. And especially like these ones, for example, they're really close together, and you can get a lot of action, a lot of combat with that. And like, yes, they have the rich Vespene gas, but they're also not, void of like being abused back here. So there is like risk to taking this base, although it's more centralized, and you could say that it's easier to defend, quote unquote. So and then here's the non-standard bases they were talking about. So you kind of have like this one ramp base up here. Honestly, I know that we had maps like this before, but I genuinely can't remember the names. But I feel like it was a couple of years ago. And so this is what they mean by like non-standard, right? Bases. And as you can see, there's a lot of that. But on this particular map, I didn't see anything super crazy. For example, you can open up these rocks. These minerals probably be mined out. There's definitely a way to sort of punish the 5-base setup. In my opinion, you have access here, access over here, access through here, access through here. So it's not like basically what I'm getting at is that although these bases are more centralized, there's ways to open them up so they become easier to punish and surround. And I feel like that's really nice because you can play around with the map, open it up, and then create that opening for a surround or whatever. So I think a lot of maps would do good like adding that, I guess. I feel like that's a cool feature. But honestly, again, like when it comes to the judging and the judges, everyone has like their own take and their own opinion of how things should be and stuff like that. So I think it's also perfectly fine to disagree with me. So we have, and here's another example too. So this is kind of cool actually. This is actually a non-traditional layout. And you can see same thing here, like the way the bases are facing and stuff like that is definitely non-traditional. But as an example, look how open this third base is. And then this fourth base is a little bit easier to take. So when I was actually judging this map, this is a really good example of a map where I was like really debating. Honestly, I went through like the emotions of like 3, 4, 5, and it's just like kept cycling between them. Because off the bat, if you look at this kind of looks rough, right? Because this base is kind of exposed. This base is kind of far away, and it's also kind of open, right? So they could go down this way, and this way, right? And that kind of sucks. But this fourth base is actually pretty open. Oh, sorry, not open, pretty closed in actually. So you can actually get a 4 base setup and then still kind of hold on to this base pretty easily, which can still be opened up, by the way, because you can kill this. But then it's not entirely free 4 base setup because this third is also pretty open. And then if you want to take a fifth bases are always going to be generally kind of hard to take. But the fifth base options on this map don't feel impossible to take. So for example, if I take this fifth base right here, this is still pretty open, right? You can still open this up here, but this helps. Stuff like this, I think, really helps, and site blockers as well. On a lot of the maps, that's something that I added was like, this map is really open, and it's going to be hard to push across the map, especially as Terran or Protoss against Zerg. But if you add these little terrains here, they just add a little bit of pushing power without being absolutely busted, in my opinion, right? Like, I can have a siege tank or two here, which is going to help me a lot, but you can't say that you still can't surround this position, right? You can go this way, this way, this way, and this way. So there's still there's still playable options, which I thought was really cool. And again, like I've been mentioning constantly, opening up the map with destructible rocks to be able to make plays. And then I think here we have those healing paths that I was talking about. You can see that right there. So I also thought that was very cool. So yeah, I gave this map a 5. Again, like it's different. It is definitely different in terms of like base layout and this stuff on the side here. But it doesn't seem, again, in my opinion, to be super busted. So I thought this was a really good blend. So you'll actually notice like a theme, and a lot of maps that give 5s in is very similar. It's a lot of stuff that's like that the maps like look at this. Like I gave this a 5. This map is kind of crazy, but like think about it. Okay, so this base you could hold it down, correct? You could defend this. This has like it's like a double-edged knife where if you take this and you mine this out, this is kind of a choke, and then it can still be punished pretty hard if you try to take this base very greedily. So if I'm a Terran, for example, and I wall this off and I try to take the rich or the high yield mineral here, instantly I can be punished from the backside, right? So it might be easier for me to take as a third when I have more units to defend it, and I can mine from here. But the trade-off as well is if I mine from here, it opens it up, and that could open it up to Zerg aggression or whatever. But that kind of applies to all the races, which I thought was cool. This base, I like the rocks here, so you can see what I was talking about. There's definitely some options of like being able to defend this. If we talk about terrain, there's some terrain here, ramp here, some ramp here as well, and you could also make it really hard for them to kill these rocks. You could put depots right here and stuff like that. So although this base is kind of open, you could still definitely defend it, right? You have that option, and then you can kind of start expanding this way. So again, map is like pretty different, and there's some chokes around here as well. Map is pretty different, but I think that it's definitely possible to get a 4 base setup here without like just dying. Again, this is my opinion. I could be entirely wrong, and I also can't speak for the other races. But this is how I viewed it. And also, I should probably just explain that like this edition there was definitely less maps, but it's still like very tedious to go through all the maps and like give as much input as possible. So honestly, it was like it got really mind numbing to the point where like I needed to lay down. And in fact, I actually took some like live stream footage of me just staring into a pillow because my head hurt. So we'll continue here, guys. We're going to the macro now. We're adding a couple of 2s here. So you can see magma mines, 2. And let's see, what did I write? So this now that we have some, so this might seem super stuff to hold onto your 3rd base and taking a 5th base. Once the starts to walk to your mood, it feels quite difficult to defend the 3rd while also trying to expand towards a 5th base. So let's see. Okay, so you can see this seems super open, right? Like this 3rd base and then this 4th base, like I could die coming this way, going this way. Probably not here, right? Because there's so many like minerals that it's just like nobody's realistically gonna mine that much, or maybe they will. I don't know, right? Cool feature, right? But the point being more so that the bases are so far apart, and like, could you imagine trying to hold on to this third, and your fifth is all the way over here? Like my brain would just melt. Like I would die, right? Even if I saw the push coming, like especially like Zerg players now have like multiple groups of lurkers running around, and the game has recently just become very, very hyper mobile, like multiple little armies going around kind of like everywhere with very high APM intensive. We have a lot of huge gateway styles in the late game happening right now with like Blink Charge Disruptor, or like Lurkers, Ling Bane. So it's like there's a lot of mobility stuff at play, Blink DTs running around and stuff like that. So, again, like I thought the map design was cool. And we're not really allowed to grade in aesthetics, but I thought it also looked pretty cool. And the base layout was also very different. But really couldn't overlook the fact that that fifth base was like far as shit. And these two bases are already far as is. So that's why for me, I gave it a low score. I also added some other stuff in here. And there's going to be a common theme. So absolutely rough to take. So let's see. So another similar scenario. If we take a look here. Yeah, like could you imagine 1, 2, 3, and then your fourth base? Like I can't even imagine holding on to this base against Zerg. I feel like I would just get surrounded on two sides, and then I could never take a fifth. So you can see what I mean. Like, in my opinion, this seems very rough, especially to kill these rocks and come here, down here, over here. So, and I really like. There's no way you don't get surrounded on two sides, or there's no way they don't just like run through here and cut this off. Again, in my opinion. I also think gold bases, like island gold bases, I think favor Terran and Protoss a ton. I think having island bases are good, but I don't think making them gold bases is good. I think that it's better to make them just normal mineralized and then have like a different kind of base on the map that Zerg could take to offset that, which actually some of the maps did have. I just can't remember exactly which maps had it, but there was a map that had a similar layout where you could take a different base in the corner that wasn't an island base, but it was different. And if you're asking me like why I think this way, it's just because with Protoss, you quickly just get a prism, drop the probe, spam 20 cannons, done. Zerg static defense is kind of trash. You have to build a lot of spores, a lot of spine crawlers to be able to like offset that. So you're losing two things because you're investing drones, which you're gonna need to rebuild, and then you have to build the actual buildings themselves. Right. So once you get it up, sure it's fine, but it's a very I feel like the investment is higher than Protoss or Terran. And I also think it's easier because it's not I think when Zerg gets a bit out of the way, you generally wouldn't. You have to go out of your way to get a unit that can transport the drone. They have to get overlord speed, and you also need to get the upgrade to be able to load and unload units. Whereas, like a Protoss player, you're always gonna have a War Prism anyway, and as a Terran player, you're always gonna have a medevac anyway. So, in my mind, it's just way more accessible for the other races. So, I do think that having like a different map or a different base on the map would be good. Again, another thing as well is you can see here, this is like tremendously open. Like, look at this. Imagine you take a fight right here, just fucking just die. Again, like Terran really relies on terrain and like being able to micro around terrain and stuff like that. I don't think I would ever take a fight in the middle. And generally speaking, playing Terran, that's pretty much what you're like try to avoid as much as you can is engaging through the middle and trying to run around the sides. But a lot of this stuff is super open. Like if I kill these rocks and attack through here, open here, open here, open in the middle. So it really only gets kind of choked up maybe once you get inside the third base, but this is still pretty exposed, I think, because you can surround it from both sides. So and cut off bases. But yeah, so and I guess just this one Atlantis, this one stood out to me because it was a map that Patches has been working on a lot. But you can see like again, I'm just to showcase that I really didn't penalize maps for being different. You have a pocket expansion here or a back. I guess it's a pocket expansion, but it's not really like a base you want to take as your natural, right? Maybe more so like a fourth or a fifth. But you can see how while he's maybe easier to take, this is kind of out there, and it's has some options to be like surrounded from two sides. Same thing here. can get surrounded by 3 sides actually, and then these rocks can be opened up, so it'll open up the map a bit. Just have this little terrain thing in the middle, and I think it did make it to the finals. So I think this is a pretty nice balanced map base layout wise. And you know what? You might even say that maybe the bases are even too easy to take. Maybe maybe this base could be a little bit harder. Maybe this base could be just a bit harder. Maybe even make it better. So and it's rather unfortunate because you don't really have enough time to look at the maps with fresh eyes, I think, just because a lot of the people who are probably doing the judging, of course, have other stuff going on. But as you can see, there's a lot of stuff to go through, especially if you want to go as detailed as you can. And then dynamic here are just some crazy maps. Here's just an example, kill switch. Again, like I could go on, I guess, about kind of stuff, but like this base super far, this one as well. Like it's just like, what did I write? Let's see, kill switch. Did I write anything? Holy shit! Okay, I wrote a lot. Okay. I like the use of the mineral walls plus the size of them to also help eliminate any potential abuses. The layout is super unique and interesting, but what I'm unsure about is this between the bases. Once you look to take a fourth base and beyond, the width plus the width of the map, I think once the map gets opened up in the late game, it will be extremely difficult to onto your bases versus Zerg's, Protoss, or Terran. Combining that openness with the distance between the bases, and I think floods and run-bys will be quite difficult to hold. So let's see. So if you open this up to get here, that does open up one thing. This base is so far from this base. Killing these rocks, you got access points here, 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 here. I guess this base might be a bit easier to hold on to. Something that I did write, I remember writing, is that positioning tanks right here and then elevating my units into this base right here and just like unloading marines and attacking the mineral line also felt were kind of crazy, or could be kind of crazy. So I also noted that as well because this is a large space behind the natural. Seems a little bit too big unnecessarily. So in my opinion, so I feel like that can be abused pretty hard. But yeah, you can see like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then now fifth base over here, fifth base option over here. But to me, everything just seems very far away. I think once you kill the rocks here and here, it opens it up a bit more, or maybe a bit too much. Again, in my opinion, please, like, if you guys think I'm being dumb, tell me, and be like, you know what, Mings, I don't think you're right. In fact, I think you should be fired. And then I'll be like, okay, fair play, but tell me why. And oh yeah, this map, I think I made a comment about how the destructible rocks actually was potentially too busted of a feature, like locking down someone into their natural. Imagine like two basing a Zerg and locking them into their own natural. And I feel like you can't reasonably expect them to kill all these rocks by like 6 minutes. That's just me. That's just something I remember off the top of my head. And yeah, so that's pretty much gonna summarize quickly what I kind of saw on the maps and how I look at the maps. I also want to say I'm sorry to the judges. I wasn't able to leave as many comments as possible. I just started working a job, so I haven't really been. Or let me rephrase that. I just had way more time constraints, and I wanted to focus more on like judging the maps adequately. Yes, Terran brain. And leaving as many comments as I could. So sorry about that. Hope you guys don't mind. Hope you guys don't hate me. Also, sorry I didn't stream it. To me, this is just a little bit easier and a little bit less overwhelming. And yeah, I think for the next edition, I probably will opt out. Just because I think I got a little bit lucky that this one has fewer maps. But I think if another edition has more maps again, it just wouldn't be fair to you guys. So that's okay though. I'm sure there's another judge out there who will carry the content. Probably not, honestly. But yeah, so that's it for this video, guys. I'm not gonna lie, judging the mouse is pretty tough. Definitely moments where you just want to bang your head on the wall, just because it's a lot to look at. That's it. It's not map maker's fault or anything like that. It's definitely very tedious in my opinion. But congratulations to all the finalists. Can't remember off the top of my head who made it besides Atlantis. I guess that's my bias showing. But I think I'll put something up here so you guys can see. But I feel like the only people that watch map makers. Anyway, not to make this video too long, but thanks for watching this video, guys, and catch you guys in the next one. Bye.